Imagine this. You're sitting in a classroom, half listening to your teacher explain an equation you'll probably forget by the weekend. The clock ticks slower than usual, and you're counting the seconds until the bell. Then, the intercom buzzes. At first, you think it's just another announcement, maybe about an assembly or a fire drill. But what comes next changes everything. This is a lockdown. All teachers, lock your doors and turn off the lights immediately. The classroom grows tense. You glance at your friends, their expressions shifting from confusion to concern. The lights go off, and the teacher hurries everyone to the corner. For a moment, it's eerily quiet. Then you hear it, screaming. Loud banging echoes through the hallway, and a voice yells threats that make your heart race. In this video, we're diving into 3 true stories where normal school days turned into nightmares. From a deranged man pounding on doors to a horrifying encounter in a dark basement, these events left lasting scars on everyone involved. So, what would you do if terror was just outside your door? Stay tuned as we recount the day fear took over, exposing the vulnerabilities of our schools and the resilience of those who faced the unimaginable. It was a boring Friday morning, the kind where even the teacher wasn't particularly invested in making calculus interesting. Most of the students were casually chatting, scribbling in notebooks, or staring out the window, waiting for the weekend to begin. That's when the intercom crackled to life. Attention! This is a lockdown. I repeat, this is a lockdown. All teachers, lock your doors and turn off the lights immediately. At first, the class assumed it was another drill. These happened regularly, and the procedure was familiar. Lock the doors, stay quiet, wait for the all clear. But something about the urgency in the announcement, and the fact that it was unscheduled, set everyone on edge. The teacher's face stiffened as she moved quickly to turn off the lights. "Everyone to the corner," she whispered. Chairs scraped against the floor as students shuffled toward the back of the room, trying to stay out of sight of the windows. The fluorescent lights flickered off, plunging the classroom into dim light. The air grew heavy with silence, except for the occasional nervous whisper. Moments later, the entire building went dark. The school had cut the power. That's when the tension in the room shifted from mild concern to palpable fear. And then they heard it. The first sound was faint, distant, and almost unintelligible, a low, guttural scream from somewhere down the hall. But as it grew louder, the words became clear. "I'll kill every one of you." The scream sent a wave of panic through the classroom. Whispers turned to sharp, panicked breaths as the students clutched their backpacks or each other, trying to make themselves as small as possible. Then came the banging, sharp, metallic clanging that echoed through the hallway like a hammer against steel. "He's hitting the lockers," someone whispered, their voice trembling. The teacher raised a finger to her lips, a silent plea for quiet. But the noise outside grew louder. Heavy footsteps thudded down the hallway, paired with the relentless banging and the man's chilling voice. "You think you can hide," he screamed. "I know you're in there." The class held their breath as the footsteps stopped, replaced by a different sound, something far more terrifying. The doorknob rattled. The pounding that followed shook the entire door. The students at the back flinched as if the man might break through at any moment. He shouted again, unintelligible at first, then clearer. "Open this door. You can't keep me out." The teacher pressed herself against the wall, clutching her phone. But the signal was out, cut along with the power. Minutes felt like hours as the pounding continued, until finally, the man seemed to give up. His footsteps retreated down the hall, but his screams grew louder, more deranged. The classroom stayed eerily silent as the man's footsteps faded into the distance. The students exchanged nervous glances, but no one dared to speak. The teacher, still pressed against the wall, exhaled deeply but stayed vigilant, her ear tilted toward the door as if trying to decipher every distant sound. Minutes passed, but the tension refused to ease. Suddenly, the intercom buzzed again, its distorted hum startling the class. "This is the dean," a shaky voice announced. "A mentally unstable individual has assaulted our front desk staff and entered the building. He is believed to be unarmed, but we advise everyone to stay in lockdown until further notice." Unarmed. That word should have been comforting, but it wasn't. It was hard to believe someone screaming death threats and pounding on doors wasn't dangerous. More distant bangs echoed through the school. The intruder was still out there, somewhere. A few students stifled sobs, their fear overflowing in the confined silence. The teacher whispered soft reassurances, but her tone betrayed her own uncertainty. After what felt like hours, the all-clear announcement finally came. The lights flickered back on, and the classroom doors creaked open one by one. But the relief was short-lived. Rumors began spreading like wildfire. The aftermath. By lunchtime, the whispers had morphed into chilling claims. Some students swore they saw the man with a weapon. Others said he was hiding somewhere in the building. The most unnerving rumor of all? That he was found later, asleep in a storage closet, clutching a .44 Magnum. He escaped before the police got here, someone said, their voice tinged with dread. They're still looking for him. The rest of the day passed in a haze of fear and unease. Every sound felt amplified, every shadow suspicious. The once boring calculus class became a memory burned into everyone's minds, a day when safety shattered, replaced by raw, unrelenting terror. It was lunchtime, and the school buzzed with the usual noise of chatter, laughter, and cafeteria chaos. The routine felt comforting, a welcome break from the intensity of the morning's classes. But that sense of normalcy was shattered in an instant. A loud, earth-shaking boom reverberated through the building, silencing every conversation. Students froze mid-bite, their eyes darting around in confusion. The sound wasn't just loud, it was unsettling, primal, like something out of a disaster movie. Before anyone could process what had happened, campus security burst into the cafeteria. Everyone, move to the multipurpose room. Now, they barked, their voices sharp and urgent. Students scrambled to follow the orders, leaving behind half-eaten lunches and scattered backpacks. The mood shifted from confusion to outright fear as security officers hurriedly blocked the glass windows with thick curtains, plunging the room into an unnatural darkness. "What's going on?" someone whispered. A faculty member stood at the front, their face pale and strained. "There's a situation at a house near the school," they explained. "We need to stay indoors until it's resolved." The vague explanation did little to calm the room. The tension only grew as more whispers spread among the students. The whispers swirled like wildfire. What kind of situation? Was someone hurt? Is it safe to be here? An adult near the back of the room finally broke the silence. "It's the man in the corner house," she muttered, loud enough for the surrounding students to hear. "The police have been trying to talk him down all morning." This wasn't just any man. It was the town's infamous recluse, the one everyone seemed to know, but no one ever really talked about. A registered sex offender, he had a reputation for erratic behavior. Some said they'd seen him screaming at invisible figures on his front lawn. Others claimed he had chased away trick-or-treaters the year before, leaving a chilling sight in their memories, threatening messages smeared in blood across his windows. "He's barricaded himself in," the woman continued. "They think he's armed." A collective gasp rippled through the room. The idea of being so close to a volatile, potentially armed individual made the air feel heavier. The minutes stretched on endlessly. Some students sat in tense silence, while others whispered theories to each other. Meanwhile, the adults in the room exchanged hushed, urgent conversations, their eyes flickering toward their phones as updates trickled in. Every so often, a muffled boom echoed from outside. Was it gunfire? An explosion? No one knew for sure. For hours, the students were kept in the dark, both literally and figuratively. The curtains blocking the windows amplified their fear, making the room feel like a tomb. Then, without warning, the lockdown lifted. The staff urged everyone to remain calm and return to their classroom, but the unease lingered. It wasn't until later that the full story came out. The man, it seemed, had been making violent threats against the police for days. When officers tried to reason with him that morning, he responded by firing shots into the air. For years, his behavior had been troubling but never outright dangerous. Until now. The Halloween incident, in particular, stood out in everyone's mind. The sight of those bloody window messages, lit eerily by a flickering porch light, was seared into the collective memory of the neighborhood. No one had ever confronted him about it. Did they catch him? A student asked a teacher after the lockdown ended. The answer was chilling in its ambiguity. We're not sure. Even though the threat had supposedly passed, the school never felt the same. That corner house, with its overgrown yard and darkened windows, became a place to avoid. And every time Halloween rolled around, students whispered stories about the man and his eerie warning. The situation was a sobering reminder of just how vulnerable they were, both to the unpredictable nature of human behavior and the thin line between safety and chaos. The day started like any other. For a young IT intern working in the school's basement, mornings were lonely but predictable. The room where he worked was small and stuffy, lined with shelves overflowing with old equipment, wires, and computers waiting for maintenance. It was the kind of place most people overlooked, except for him. During lunch, while reviewing a technical manual, the school intercom issued an urgent announcement: immediate lockdown. Please follow the safety protocol. He froze for a moment, assuming it was just another drill, until he noticed something unusual. The typical sounds from upstairs, laughter and students' footsteps, had gone silent. An eerie stillness had taken over the building. His throat tightened. There was no one to guide him in the basement. He was completely alone. Remembering the lockdown protocol, he switched off the lights and hid under his desk. The darkness in the room was oppressive, and the muffled noises from upstairs, faint voices and hurried footsteps, did little to reassure him. His phone buzzed continuously in his pocket, but he was afraid the glow from the screen might attract unwanted attention. Despite his fear, curiosity got the better of him. He glanced at the screen quickly. A message from a coworker read, "Someone armed has entered the building. Lock everything." His hands shook as he tried to respond, but before he could finish, a sound froze him in place: the creaking of the basement door opening. Heavy footsteps echoed on the metal stairs leading to the basement. Each step seemed louder than the last. The intern held his breath, his heart pounding as he tried to make himself as small as possible under the desk. A figure appeared in the room. In the dim light from the hallway, he could make out a tall man wearing a red plaid shirt and carrying something bulky in his arms. "Hey," the man said, his voice hoarse and strained. "I'm just hiding. I came to pick up my kid, but things got bad upstairs." The intern wanted to believe him, but something felt off. Why would anyone come to the basement to hide? He stayed silent, hoping the man would leave. The man stepped further into the room, his eyes scanning the space. "Are you alone here? It's safe down here, right?" At that moment, the phone buzzed again. A new message appeared on the screen. "Intruder is armed. Red plaid shirt." Panic set in. He had to get out. But how? The man was only a few feet away, blocking the only exit. "Hey, aren't you going to answer me?" the man demanded, his tone growing more aggressive. Without thinking, the intern grabbed a nearby chair and shoved it hard against the floor. The sudden noise echoed in the confined space, startling the intruder. Taking advantage of the moment, the intern bolted in the opposite direction, weaving through shelves and knocking over boxes to create a barrier. A sharp sound cut through the air. A gunshot. He didn't look back. He sprinted up the stairs, the echoes of his footsteps blending with the man's furious shouts. When he finally reached the hallway, he was met by an armed police officer. "He's down there," the intern shouted. Chaos unfolded in seconds. Police swarmed the basement entrance while the intern was escorted to safety. The man tried to escape but was quickly subdued. Later, the intern learned that the intruder's target wasn't random. The man had been searching for a specific teacher, but fortunately, his attempt was thwarted before he could do more harm. Days later, the sound of the gunshot still echoed in the intern's mind. Every time he entered the basement to work, he felt the weight of what could have happened. The school implemented stricter safety measures, but for him, the locked doors and emergency lights would never erase the memory of that day. It was the kind of experience that changed how you saw the world, where a familiar space could suddenly transform into